Diablo 2, the game that gave me my first tendinitis. Good times. But wait, I usually don't cover expansion packs, but Diablo 2 is near impossible to play without its awesome expansion pack Lord of Destruction. Let's try that again. There we are. Diablo 2 was released in 2000 and made by Blizzard North, formerly known as Condor under the leadership of David Brevik. Blizzard Entertainment bought Condor during the development of the first Diablo game, and that turned out to be a great success. Lord of Destruction followed a year later in 2001. We'll do an edited playthrough of the first act with different characters, talk about game mechanics, the story, and compare it to other titles and more. But first, a technical talk. The good news is Diablo 2 runs on modern machines without any problems. But the bad news? The graphics. We need the palette cleanser first, else our eyes might melt. That's some crappy graphics. Diablo will look sweet after this. And by the way, Alley Cat was a great DOS game. This is what 640 by 480 pixels look like, and it's what vanilla Diablo 2 supports. Other titles with the same resolution includes the original Diablo, released 3 years before its sequel. Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness, released 5 years before Diablo 2. Crusader No Remorse, also released in 1995. A comparable title released alongside Diablo 2 in 2000 is Baldur's Gate 2 with a max resolution of 800 by 600 pixels. Okay, joking aside, it's obviously not that black and white. I remember my computer struggling with Diablo 2 when it was released, so it was clearly wise of Blizzard to settle for that resolution, as the game does a lot of things that eat computer resources. The point is, however, that this was a bit painful to look at over 20 years after its release. There are plenty of mods that fixes this, but I had issues with most of them. Some of the mods just changed the resolution, and this creates issues with the AI as it's tuned to the original set screen size. Other mods like Median XL fixes the aforementioned issues, but they also alter the game in fundamental ways. The positives are quality of life improvements, but they change stats, skills, mechanics, and tweak almost every single aspect of the game. The mod is great if you played a lot of Diablo 2 recently, but as usual, I want to play the game the way it was. That's part of the reason why the expansion pack Lord of Destruction is a part of this video. It increases the resolution to 800 by 600 pixels, and it adds a slew of cool things. We'll talk more about those things later. Here's our hero classes that we can choose. Over the years, people have perfected different specialized builds with each character, but I'm a casual Diablo 2 player, so we'll stick with their basic features. The Amazon is a warrior that specializes in spears, javelins, and a bow, with a bit of magic thrown in the mix. The Assassin was introduced in Lord of Destruction. She dual wields claw weapons and has an array of traps at her disposal. The Necromancer raises the undead as his own army, using poison and dark magic. The Barbarian focuses on melee combat and shouts to increase his strength or weaken his enemies. The Paladin is a holy warrior, primarily focused on close combat and prayer to his god for extra defensive or offensive buffs. The Sorceress is physically weak, but makes up for this with powerful ranged elemental magic. The Druid was also introduced in Lord of Destruction. He can cast magic, summon creatures, and can shapeshift into different beasts, making him powerful in melee combat. So, this is Act 1 called the Sightless Eye. We start off in this place called the Rogue Encampment, which acts as a safe zone, trading hub, and a place to pick up quests. Warrave stands next to us with a light over his head, indicating that he has something important to tell us. The short version is that there's a rumor that Tristram, the town from the first Diablo game, has been destroyed, and Diablo walks the earth again, spreading chaos in his path. He directs us to Akara, the leader of the camp. Akara tells us that she's a high priestess of the Sisterhood of the Sightless Eye, but that the Sisterhood has fallen under a curse by the demoness Andariel. She gives us our first quest called Den of Evil, so we have to find it and slay every shadowy creature found. From here we start exploring the world to complete our quest. Most of the maps are randomly generated, so there's no quick way to run straight to your quest. You actually have to explore.
I shall purge this land of the shadow.
It doesn't take many seconds before you kill your first enemy and experience the delights Diablo 2 tickles your brain's reward center with. And this is something Diablo 2 does extremely well. The way enemies die, the sound of different items dropping on the ground, and the anticipation of what stats that blue or yellow item has, it all drives you towards that next goal, just 5 more minutes. The only sound effect that's unsatisfactory to me is the level up sound. I mean, you barely notice it and it's nothing special. Call of Duty nailed the level up sound. Check this out. Okay, anyways, we finally get to the Den of Evil and we get to explore a new cavernous area. Up until now, everything has been pretty easy, but now the game starts throwing more enemies at you as well as introduce new enemy types. The shaman will resurrect their fellow kind if you slay them, so you have to prioritize them, giving the game a more tactical aspect. Loot has been a part of your Diablo life from your very first kill, and around this time you might also get your first level up. Stats slowly increase your might, but skills are instantly rewarding, especially a brand new one. It's just another thing to keep you going in pursuit of that next goal. You'll also discover the first uncommon enemy here. Essentially, it looks like a normal enemy but has another color, and they're more powerful and can have special abilities like increased damage, speed, or anything else. They're randomly generated and will often yield higher quality items when killed. We're down to the last beast in the den. Upon slaying it, light shines down from above, indicating that evil has been cleansed.
The rogues are safe for the moment.
To fast travel back to the camp, we can use a town portal, which you should always carry. Akara rewards us with 1 skill point that we can assign as we like. Kasha, the rogue mercenary captain, tells us that one of her fellow soldiers, called Bloodraven, has been corrupted by evil and has set up shop in the burial grounds. She raises the dead as her own army and poses a threat to the camp. We have to stop this by killing Bloodraven. Bloodraven is a so-called sub-boss, but if you're not prepared, it can be a tough fight. If you find certain bosses or area of the game too hard, there's always easier areas you can go to earn experience points, or you can save your game and reload the game, which makes all the enemies respawn. This turned out to be a very good design choice by Blizzard, and it's that which gave the game its longevity, even though it was a controversial decision among the staff at the time. You can't get quest rewards more than once per character, but you can kill bosses and other enemies over and over to get a chance at some good loot every time. Diablo 2 players got this down to a science and called it boss runs, where the point was to get rare unique items that only certain bosses dropped but had a very low chance of dropping. At the end of Act 1, I found a piece of an item set. This is a piece of gear that is quite powerful, but gets a bonus from having 2 pieces and a full bonus if you have all 4 pieces. I started doing boss runs even in single player just to try to get more of the item set. It's a very addictive addition to the game.
I shall meet death head on.
So we're at the burial grounds, and it's time to face Bloodraven and her undead army.
Join my army of the dead.
Once Bloodraven is defeated, her soul releases lightning, killing most of her undead army. We can return to Kasha, and upon completion, we may now recruit followers from her to help us fight. These followers will level up as they fight alongside you and can be decked out with weapons and armor. The followers can be resurrected if they fall in battle, so you don't have to start at scratch every time something happens. Akara gives us our third quest, which is to travel to Tristram, the town from Diablo 1, and search for Cain, a character that appears in all 3 of the Diablo games as a scholar, teaching you more about the lore of this universe and as a quest giver. This quest involves several steps. First, we have to find the Tree of Inifus, which contains a bark scroll that we need. Upon returning to the camp, Akara translates the scroll for us. Now we have to search for the Cairn Stones, which has to be activated in the order shown in the scroll. A portal to Tristram has opened, this place has been overrun by demons, so expect a fight.
The land here is dead and lifeless.
Diablo 2 does almost everything right, and for people who likes these kind of games, it's a must play. I want to touch on some of the few things that are not great though. The stamina bar is completely useless in terms of game mechanics. It makes you move slower when you run out, and that's just it. Just a hindrance in my search for more loot. Next issue. This applies to minimaps in most games to be fair, but to explore efficiently, you use your minimap which is laid out on top of your character in Diablo 2. This makes sense for exploration, but it diverts your attention away from the world. Next up is a minor thing, but even more customization for your followers would have been awesome, especially in single player. Okay, my last grievance. Sharing inventory between your characters is not possible without mods or meeting a friend online which carries your stuff while you change between characters. The chests are way too small and item sharing would have been awesome without modding. Lord of Destruction doubles your stash, but that's not enough. This is even worse when a boss drops a unique item for another character than the one you're playing. Before leaving Tristram, be sure to grab Vert's leg. Spoiler alert, but this can be used to open the secret cow level. Kane is free and has returned to camp and will now identify items for us for free. Up until now, rare items had to be identified using a scroll, but this game mechanic is now obsolete. The fourth quest can be found when exploring the world. The moldy tome tells us of an evil woman called the Countess. It was said that she bathed in the rejuvenating blood of 100 virgins, which sounds refreshing. The Diablo wiki claims she is likely inspired by the real-life Elizabeth Bathory, a Hungarian countess who allegedly did similar evil deeds in the 16th and 17th century. Okay, back to the countess. She was also supposed to be very wealthy, so this is a good opportunity to fill up our coffers and maybe get a few good items while we're at it. While we work our way through the Forgotten Tower, let's talk about the things that Lord of Destruction introduced to Diablo 2. We've already covered some of this, the higher resolution, double the stash for storing items, and the two new classes, the Assassin and the Druid, but there's more. More of everything, items, enemies, and crafting recipes. There's a new act with a new boss, we have charms, which are items you keep in your character's inventory to get passive bonuses. Also, jewels that can be used in socketed items to improve their stats. And the best of all items, runes! They will modify your items with improved stats, you can upgrade them by having 3 of a kind, and you can create some of the most powerful weapons and armor in the game by creating rune words. They're like the Fusuroda of Diablo. The followers you can hire will now follow the players across all the acts. Class-specific items that can only be used by certain characters. And last but not least, W as a hotkey to switch between an alternate weapon and spell setup on the fly. Lord of Destruction is the definitive version of Diablo 2 and a must-have. Let's skip ahead and fight the Countess.
I've earned the right to this abandoned trove.
That's a lot of gold. It makes this endeavor worthwhile, and there is a number of ways to spend our gold. We can repair our items at the blacksmith, buy weapons, armor, potions, and gamble to potentially get great items. I should mention that when you die, you lose up to 20% of your gold depending on your character's level, unless you play on so-called hardcore mode. If you die in hardcore mode, your character will be deleted and you'll lose everything. Our fifth quest is given to us by Charsi, the town blacksmith. She had to flee the rogue monastery when the evil forces overtook it. She left her enchanted smithing hammer called the Horadric Malice, and she wants us to retrieve it. I want to talk about Diablo 2 in comparison to other titles, mainly Diablo 1 and 3. Keep in mind that this is purely subjective. I find Diablo 2 to be an improvement in every single aspect in regards to Diablo 1. The developers' goal was just that, to make it bigger and better in every way possible, and they succeeded. It was built only using about 1% of the code and assets from the first game, so it feels brand new. There's more variation on enemy types, and the different acts in Diablo 2 takes place in different areas of the world, bringing in that much needed change of scenery that Diablo 1 lacked. What carries over from the original is the basic concept, the idea of what Diablo is and should be. Dark atmosphere, the battle against evil, the leveling and class system, and randomly generated maps, and let's not forget the loot. So, clearly Diablo 2 is superior to Diablo 1 in every way, but the debate regarding Diablo 2 versus Diablo 3 still rages on in forums across the web. In my opinion, Diablo 3 also improves upon its predecessors in all areas, but a hardcore Diablo 2 player might disagree. In any case, it's much more user-friendly and easier to get into and understand than ever before. It's easier to use multiple skills in succession, the looting and crafting system is fun, and Blizzard has once again set up the game for a long lifespan, with Paragon levels, online events, and for a short time until it was removed in 2014, a built-in auction house where players could trade and buy items both with virtual and real-life currency. Diablo 2 did not have this built in, so the community took action, and now there's a bunch of websites dedicated to selling you virtual items in exchange for your hard-earned money. One downside of Diablo 3 that seems to be broadly agreed upon is the lack of the dark atmosphere that defined the previous titles. Diablo 3 was criticized for being too bright and colorful. It would be hard to recommend Diablo 2 over Diablo 3 to someone who didn't play it when it was released. I would much rather recommend Diablo 3 for all those reasons mentioned. Let's fast forward so we can fight the Smith. Well, that was easy. I've done all the side areas possible with my paladin, so he's a bit overpowered. There's no level scaling in Diablo 2. All we have to do now is pick up the Horadric Malice and return it to Charcy the Blacksmith. Upon returning, our reward is to imbue one ordinary item. That's fancy talk for make magical and powerful. Pro players save this option until they have a really good high level weapon, but I want something fancy right now because it's time for our 6th and final quest in Act 1, called Sisters to the Slaughter. We have to travel deep into the catacombs beneath the monastery to face the demon and Dariel, one of the 4 lesser evils in Diablo 2. It's our toughest fight so far, so being high enough level and having good enough gear will make all the difference. When descending down into the abyss, Diablo 2 really shows its ability to be dark and gritty, with scenes of torture, even more brutal enemies, and music and sound effects to accompany it all. It's like the hell scenes from Event Horizon in game form. Let's get some happiness in our lives real quick. Okay, we made it to the end. Let's see if we can defeat her.
My work here is finished.
We made it! And Dariel is defeated and Act 1 is complete. If you felt even slightly excited when you saw that green item drop, you should buy and install Diablo 2 immediately. Thank you very much for watching this episode, and remember, there's always more loot to be found.